From the Donald Danforth Plant Science Center, HEC-TV and the Danforth Society are proud to present a corporate sustainability dialogue with Mark Royce and Andy Taylor.
I want to welcome you all here to the Danforth Center for this very special presentation about sustainability in corporate America. We're particularly proud to host this event as agricultural sustainability and environmental sustainability are two of the most important areas in which we do research here at the center. The discussion we'll hear, and in fact that you'll have the opportunity to participate in through your questions, features two wonderful leaders from two of America's great companies. Mark Royce is president of GM North America. He's in charge of all North America operations for GM and is, of course, visiting us from Detroit. Andy Taylor, who is well known to many of you, is CEO and chairman of Enterprise Holdings, which, again, as you know, is based in Clayton. Thank you and Andy for being our featured guests and for visiting with us this afternoon. We had a great time. Appreciate all the time that you spent as well as members of your team for coming by. More information about Mark and Andy are provided in the cards that were handed out. And on those cards, if you would like to submit a question, please do so during the presentation, and an usher will pick those cards up from you. Now, many of you also know Andy's father, Jack Taylor, who is with us this evening. The Danforth Center would look very different today, very different, if not for Jack and others in the Taylor family. And we are appreciative of their generosity, their support, their leadership, their guidance, which led to the formation of the Enterprise Rent-A-Car Institute for Renewable Fuels here at the center about 5 years ago. The Enterprise Institute has been a critical catalyst for all of our research programs relevant to biofuels. And I am thrilled to give you a piece of information that I just learned about a half an hour ago at 4 o'clock because of what the Enterprise Institute has done and because of the hard work of our director, Tom Britnell, and other scientists in the Institute, Ivan Baxter and Todd Mockler. We were just informed at 4 p.m. this afternoon that as of today, an unnamed federal agency just awarded us a $12 million grant to study This is a $12 million grant to study how biofuel crops survive under drought and other stress conditions. So a wonderful bit of news. We would not have gotten that grant and the work that will be done through that grant without the Enterprise Rent-A-Car Institute for Renewable Fuels. You've had a great impact on the center. So thank you, Jack. Thanks, Andy. Thanks, Joanne, and the rest of the family. I also want to thank our Danforth Society members who are hosting today's program for your continuing leadership and generosity. These individuals in the Society are our partners through their generous annual gifts, and it's those annual gifts for unrestricted support that allows us to develop programs that are too early to get grants for, and it allows us to move into areas that we feel are important, but that we need to build up some critical mass. The Danforth Society members are great friends. This evening's program will be aired for several weeks on Sundays, starting June 17th at 5 p.m. on HEC-TV, one of our long-standing partners. The program will also be available on the Danforth Center website. Two other quick notes before I hand it off to our panelists. Please use the cards to submit questions. That's time permitting. I hope we'll have time to answer a number of them, but please hand them to one of the individuals on the side that have their hands up. Also, following the presentation, you'll be able to take, if you haven't done so today already, and I know a number of you have, you'll be able to take a 30-minute or so tour of the Danforth Center. For those of you wanting to take a tour, we'll accommodate everyone. Just meet outside the doors of the auditorium. You'll see several individuals who will be holding up signs that say, creatively, tours. Go to those people. And now I'd like to introduce Mark Gunther, our moderator this evening. Mark is a veteran journalist, a speaker, a writer whose focus is business and sustainability. He's a contributing editor at Fortune magazine. Mark, welcome to the Danforth Center. Thank you for participating in this and for moderating the discussion. Take it away.
Great. Thank you very much. Well, Andy and Mark, thank you for coming. I'll say a word or two about each of you and your companies before we get started. Andy has been with Enterprise since 1973, nearly 40 years, although he did a little part-time work before then. He's been chief executive since 1991, chairman since 2001, perhaps best known for engineering the big acquisition of Alamo and National Car Rental in 2007. That makes Enterprise the biggest car rental company in the world, measured by revenue, by employees, by fleet. $14 billion company and about 70,000 employees. And if you, like I, have done business with Enterprise, you'll know they are some of the friendliest, most customer service-oriented employees you will find anywhere. Mark Royce helped spearhead really one of the great turnaround stories in American business. We all know where GM was back in 2008 and 2009. He became president of GM North America at the end of 2009. Last year, he was telling me earlier, GM North America made $7 billion in profits. So that's a pretty impressive comeback from bankruptcy. Like Andy, Mark is a company loyalist. He started at GM as an undergraduate when he was going for his engineering degree at Vanderbilt. And he's pretty much been there ever since. And I guess, Andy, you were saying beforehand, the GM Enterprise connection, by the way, in simplest terms, what we have here is there's a salesman on the far right and a customer in the middle.
We're both salesmen. He makes them new and I turn them into used.
There you go. But you were saying before, the GM Enterprise connection even goes back before the two of you.
Yeah, quick story, because we're looking at a St. Louis community crowd here, by the way. Thank you all for coming out today. But just a quick story. My father, 55 years ago, started Enterprise. He came out of a Cadillac organization and had one employee, and he used to tell me the story that he'd let the phone ring a few times extra because he wanted his prospective customers to think he was busy. But at that time, General Motors was selling him cars, but also financing them at General Motors Acceptance Corporation. And frankly, without GM support in those very early days, our business would not have had a chance to get where it is today. So I just want to thank Mark. And by the way, Mark's father, Lloyd, met Jack many, many years ago and is alive and doing well. So it's kind of fun to be back with this Mr. Royce, because our previous Mr. Royce and my father kind of did some stuff together. So
Yeah.
anyway, thank you, General Motors, and thank you, Mark.
Thank
Mark,
you,
your
Andy.
dad was a GM?
He was. Yes, he was a GM. Yes, he's in fact he's from Darmstadt, Illinois, which is real close to here. And my mom is from Sparta. And my aunts and uncles I'm taking out to dinner tonight. So I don't get down here enough, so I'm really, really excited to do that. So I haven't seen him in a little while.
Great. Well, Andy, let's start with you, and let's just talk briefly, before we talk about corporate sustainability, a little bit about the Danforth Center. I imagine as a CEO, you get many, many requests from worthy organizations that are attacking a variety of problems, you know, whatever, education, poverty, environment, health. What was it about the Danforth Center that led you and the company to become a supporter? What's the business connection?
Well, as we had the privilege of having this larger organization and having a large number of employees and being in most communities around the country, we had to really step back and think strategically. You know, we have to be part of these communities. We have to be a part of our industry. We are getting to be the largest, and where can we, you know, make a mark and which is also tangential to our business. And so when the Danforth Plant Center was coming into being, my father and Bill Danforth and were close, still are, of course, with Bill, and this whole proposition of the Enterprise Institute really made good sense at that time.
And Mark, I guess one reason you're here is Enterprise is one of your biggest customers. The biggest customer, did you say?
Enterprise is our biggest customer, which is fantastic, and they're also our best customer, I'm happy to say. So, no,
you give them a discount for buying in bulk?
Yeah, we'll do that. No.
We're paying way too much, I'm sure.
So these are both, the reason I ask is these are both big companies. What you do matters, your environmental performance matters. Talk a little bit about the role of customers like Enterprise and fleet sales and what that enables you to do as a company in terms of trying out new ideas.
Well, it is, and the Danforth Center here, the way this happened a little bit was, I've known Andy over the last year and a half or two in my new job, but the company's had a long relationship with Enterprise, obviously here. But we had our 25th reunion here at college, and Laura Chauvin and Jim Johnson, who are both here tonight, asked me if I'd come visit, this Center for Sustainability, and I said, well, I don't really know anything about it. So why don't you send me something in the mail? And they sent me a really nice package in the mail of what happens here. So that was very compelling. And it's compelling because I think if we all look at all the wars that are fought over foreign oil and then all the CO2 and regulatory things that the federal agencies we're working very closely with to implement, number one, it's the right thing to do. Number two, I have 3 kids, and I know a lot of people here have kids, and what are we going to leave to our kids when we turn the world over to them? And I don't think wasting and having things that are used up and wars that are fought is probably the right thing to do. And so we both have a chance to make a difference. And so something like this here in St. Louis that is looking at the yield of the whole biofuel activity and some of the biodiesel activity and some of the food shortages that you see as we approach 8 billion people in the world here by 2020. I'm not sure there's a more important thing that we should be paying attention to, and it's all happening in this center. So, I think between the maker of the car, the user of the car, and the infrastructure that goes along with it, we can make a difference, and it's up to us to do it.
So we're going to talk here about where transportation is going in terms of sustainability. And one of the hard things that you both have to do in your jobs is figure out where your customers are going. Mark, you make a lot of big capital bets on factories and investments and developing new cars. Mm-hmm. What kind of a time frame do you look at when you're making those decisions? How far out do you feel comfortable carrying out your scenario planning?
Well, I think we're lean and agile enough to look at 5 years first, Mark, and make those decisions, which we have in some of the things we've done here, like our pickup truck portfolio in the United States. Any of the makers, the bandwidth of use is way too large. So if you look into the future here and where the regulatory environment is going to be 10 years from now, you make the bets on 5 years from now, and that's why you see our mid-sized trucks going into Wentzville here. And those are going to be a micro segmentation of the big bandwidth that we see for sale in the United States. So you'll see our mid-sized pickup trucks made here with lots of, I'm not going to give it all away here, so, but lots of alternative fuel activities in it, some mild electrification as well, and a duty cycle that's probably 95% of what we had in traditional pickup trucks. The people who still need a pickup truck to do and make a living with are going to be able to buy those, but they're going to be lighter and they're going to be a different powertrain in it. But we're gonna see some segmentation that you see around the world where fuel prices are more like $5. People are going to use those for businesses that are very appropriate for their duty cycle. So you'll see that happen. And I think that the planning horizon, though, I look at it 5 years out, and then I look at what you know, the environment, I think, is going to be 10 years out, so that the bets we make 5 years out fold into what I think is going to happen 10 years from now. So hopefully that sort of frames it up.
And how about you, Andy? What kind of time frame are you looking at when you look at the future?
Well, Mark really has the tough job of investing all the capital in these plants and making these decisions far ahead, and you never know exactly how things are going to move. We really want to be kind of the next step, if you will. So if his stuff is coming out, we're a great opportunity to put these in the hands of renters, particularly in the home city, where people are using the cars as if it was their own car. Maybe their car's in the shop or whatever. So we're a good place to introduce vehicles. We on the West Coast have quite a number of electric vehicles. It takes a little extra time to explain it to the customer. We have good people that can do that. We talk about the range anxiety of 100 miles or less. And you know, we at times are going to buy some of these vehicles. I shouldn't say this in front of Mark. We're going to buy some of these vehicles, and they're not going to be that great economically. But
For you.
For us.
Yeah.
But what we have to do is we, as the largest private owner vehicles in the world, I believe, we have to be playing in this arena and trying these out, helping the manufacturers understand if they're resonating with customers, that they're part of our sustainability plan. So that's kind of how we see our role.
Well, let's take 5 years out, Mark. Will the mix of transportation fuels look significantly different from what it looks like today? I mean, given the choices would be, I guess, gasoline, biofuels, electricity, perhaps something else like natural gas of some kind.
I think so. I think you know, the whole industry right now is placing their bets for the next 5 to 10 years on what these are going to be, how affordable are they to people, is there infrastructure, at least in the infant stage, so that people can actually fill these up and use them. All those bets are being placed right now because the industry has money. We've had a pretty decent run since the global financial crisis. If you look at a lot of different industries, you'll see a lot of variability, but the auto industry has pretty much led the feedback of jobs and infrastructure here. And so we've got some cash to do it, and so we better do it. But I think, you know, in the end, you're going to see some pretty good plays in light electrification. The pure electric vehicles will still be an urban play, and I think you're seeing that today. I think Ford sold 6 electric Focuses, not because they're bad cars, but because you know, this is not for everybody quite yet. And so, and the Leaf, and then we'll have a Spark that's all electric in addition to the Volt. So you'll see the industry continually learn about the duty cycle of these. I'm not waiting for, however, a breakthrough in battery technology. I think the light electrification that you see in products like the Buick LaCrosse, you know, there's 20% improvement in fuel economy there for about $1,500. Those are the type of things you'll see enter the market here gradually until we get, you know, a more substantial base of some of those core electric products. On the biofuel basis here, you know, I think that the time is ripe, given the volatility in pure gasoline, for things like biodiesels, CNG. In parts of the world we see LPG where it's plentiful, but we've got all kinds of reserves on a CNG basis here. I expect
and CNG, just explain, that's
compressed natural gas. And I think what you'll see, sort of the nirvana of what I'd like to see is the Volt technology with a CNG application for that, so that you could actually fill up the whole car at home. And so the gas would be delivered, it'd be compressed, you know, in a small, compact way, right in your garage. You can either plug the car in for $1.50 and recharge the whole battery pack, or you can leverage your natural gas supply into a compressor to be able to fill a car in a tank. That would be spectacular in my mind.
And that could make economic sense because a lot of
think it
homes
could.
are already hooked up to natural gas.
I think the delivery and the infrastructure is completely there. What we don't have is an infrastructure to compress it for fill up in a car that's timely. And so we need to have that type of a device to do it. And we see the industry, there's devices that do it. So we need to do this on a more commercial scale so people can actually fund it and put it in their house. But I think it'd be pretty spectacular. After driving a Volt for almost 2 years, 8,500 miles, about 16 gallons of fuel over that time frame. I don't like going to a gas station anymore, so if we can do a CNG play there, I think it'd be those kind of answers, not necessarily that, but those kind of answers I think are going to be really compelling because you don't have to go pay for one of those on every gas station corner. Everybody's got gas delivered to the house, and we can figure out how to do it quickly to a car. I think that's not a reach. So things like that are you're going to see those happen. So.
What do you think, Andy, if we look either pick a date, 5 or 10 years into the future, how much of your fleet will be what now could be called alternative fuel vehicles as opposed to gas-powered?
Well, if you just look at today, the flex fuel vehicles that GM pioneered, we have a lot of those vehicles and have bought a ton of those vehicles. But unlike Mark, we don't have to make quite the bet,
right.
and so we're just going to have to be ready to go. We're using some electrics out in California, as I say, or Seattle. We're putting the charging stations in our branches out there. If CNG is a play, we're being approached by some of the CNG folks now because the price is so low. We just have to be very flexible. And if I can just make kind of an interesting statement, because I've been in the business for a very long period of time, these are tough decisions for GM and the other manufacturers, which way to go, what's going to be acceptable. It's also a really exciting time for the business because you don't know exactly what's going to happen, but with the electric cars and hybrid plug-ins like the Volt and hybrids, my granddaughter might drive a hydrogen fuel cell car, which I've driven one from General Motors. It's a question of infrastructure, I think. So it's going to be really exciting. Some of my team are really concerned because they don't know what the residual value of this stuff is going to be. But as I said earlier, it's sort of like, that is a great idea, Andy, but don't send me too many. But this is going to be a great chapter to follow.
And when you look into the future, you have to make some assumption about the price of gasoline. Are you expecting 5 years from now it will be higher, lower, or about the same as it is now? Andy?
There is no doubt it's going to be higher. And one other reason, not to rain on everybody's, well, it rained outside, I understand. I've been here a while. But thinking about Mark's situation where he's bought 16 gallons of gas, you're going to have more examples of that. And in that price of gasoline is 18 cents for the National Highway Trust Fund. And so Washington now has another issue they're going to have to deal with because the amount of gasoline consumed here in the U.S. By cars is dropping probably at a faster rate than most people know. And that trust fund is going to, that item's going to have to be addressed. And, there are a few other things that they're trying to address in Washington. I hope they do at some point. Can I say that nicely enough?
Mark, do you agree?
I can't say that last part, but...
there are aspects when you're a privately held company.
I know that. Oh, I know.
I'm sorry.
I had a brief experience with that, but then it all went public. No, I do.
You agree
I think
gas prices are going to go up?
They are.
More likely than down.
I think so. You live in different parts of the world, and gas prices sort of, at least for now, equalize right around $5 a gallon, which we're still way below that. And so I think we've still got a lot of upside on that. The only thing we really know, though, is that it's going to be incredibly elastic and volatile. And so every time we see that happen, there's about a 30-day lag time on results on mix, on what people buy and how much they buy. But I'd say, we've had a creep up from, remember when $4 hit in 2008, that was like the end of the world, right? Well, we've had $4 come and go, and we've had small incremental gains around $4 or decreases around $4, and we haven't had wild swings. So I think people are sort of getting used to the idea that energy is going to cost a little more. As long as we don't go to $5 in 6 days, I think people can adjust their lifestyles and living habits to adjust that. the same token is, you know, they're going to start looking at new cars because the operating cost is so much lower than, you know, the 11-year average in the fleet. So if you're driving around in something that's 11 years old, it typically has a much higher operating cost than something that is introduced today. So you're seeing that fuel a little bit of the gradual expansion of the industries, I think. So,
And the 11-year figure is the average cost of the average age of the cars on the road today.
That's right.
Wow, I didn't know. it was
Over
that
100,000
old.
miles.
Yes.
And over 100,000 miles.
If I could just add to that, that we have a very large operation in the United Kingdom. The United Kingdom, as I imagine many of you know, petrol is quite expensive. Lee, it's about, what, 110 now? 110 pence for a liter. And what's happened is there, people just buy smaller cars, they buy manual transmissions, fewer have air conditioning. I mean, he knows that he makes them, and with a great Vauxhall brand. And, you know, I hope that we have this sort of let the customer choose kind of system,
Yeah.
not the government tell us what kind of system to use. I'm sorry, I'm putting my foot in my mouth again.
Well,
I cannot agree with that or disagree with that again.
Oh, you're leaving me hanging out there, man.
No, I agree with you on that one, big time. We got to let the market go here, big time. Yeah.
well, unfortunately, Mark, the government is telling you what to do in a number of areas. One of them is fuel efficiency, where, with your agreement, we must say, the government has essentially said you have to come close to doubling fuel efficiency by 2025. So if we're in the mid-20 miles per gallon now, you've agreed to get to over 50 miles a gallon by 2025.
Right.
What do you see as the path to get there?
Well, there's some enablers for that, not to be overly technical on it, but those are the raw numbers, Mark, and then there's things inside of it that are credit builders, and some cars are really hyper-mile credit builders like the Volt, and there's fuels inside of it that help you build credits to comply as well, like E85, and that's where I think the biofuel thing is a healthy incentive to be brought into production. So there's that. And then there's things like we sort of worked really hard to get off of the Freon and even the latest charge systems for AC, and we've gotten some credits to go to something that's very innovative that does nothing to the environment. And so we're getting ready to introduce that into all of our GM products as well. So we'll get some credits for that. So there's a lot of incentive inside of those numbers to do the right thing on things that actually you know, are not healthy for the environment. So I think those are good things. But you know, at the end of the day, like you say, there's gonna be a mix change here, and it doesn't mean that we're gonna do a bunch of small cars that everybody's gonna have to drive either. We'll have good cars, we'll have fast cars, we'll have performance cars, we'll have pickup trucks, but we'll have a lot of really fuel efficient cars too. That'll be really good, I think, in a family size basis. So I don't buy into the fact that our engineers can't solve the equation for the size of cars and trucks that people really want. And so I think the American public has probably spoken pretty hard on that over the last years on what, you know, is good for our roads, how people make a living, how many people they carry in it. You know, there's a preference there, and so we got to engineer into those preferences of size in all classes, high fuel efficiency and fun, and we can do that.
Andy, do you find, you know, Mark just said he can see a direct relationship 30 days later, gasoline prices, auto purchasing decisions. Do you find that comes into play at all in your business? Are people renting smaller cars when the prices begin to rise?
Referring back to '08, summer of '08, I remember I was out in Seattle at our airport operation, our enterprise brand then, watching some customers come through, looking at the systems we had and all that, and gasoline had reached that high point. And out there, it's taxed pretty heavily, so I mean, it was really expensive. And people were reserving more mid-sized cars and small cars, and when they would come in, you know, we can't flip the fleet over fast enough to have enough of them. So they'd come in and we'd say, well, we'll give you, you know, you've reserved a mid-sized car, we'll give you a free upgrade to this. And they'd say, no, we really don't want that. Yeah. we will wait for one to come back. We'll wait for a smaller one to come. We'd say, wait a minute, how many miles are you going to drive? And, you know, we'd figure it out and give them, you know, a free third of a tank of gas or something. And as soon as the economics got okay, and we didn't think that up, I can't think that up, but our people on the ground did because they're very smart people.
Yeah.
And so they'd say, well, we'll give you some gas if you take this vehicle so we can keep our fleet in balance.
It's good.
And they thought
That's
of
a
that.
great
But
idea.
it's the people in the field that are the smartest ones.
So tell me, have either of you driven an electric car? What's the experience been like?
I have. First of all, I've driven the Volt, which is the plug-in hybrid, but as he says, runs mostly on electricity for sure. And I remember I drove it 2 years ago, or maybe a little more, and Pam Nicholson, our president, a few of us went up there. And Pam used to work for us in California after she came out of the University of Missouri. And so she drove I was in the back seat, and she drove like a Californian, and I was amazed to see it had a huge pickup and great turning capabilities, and I just about got car sick and broke my neck as she was flying, this car was flying around. And I was very impressed, and I've driven it a couple times since. And a competitor's Mark's is the all-electric Leaf, and I've driven that a couple of times, and it's very satisfactory. I think there's this range anxiety deal
There is.
with it.
Yeah, no, and yeah, I own one, and so my kids, my oldest daughter drives the rest of the kids around in it, and so she's taking it at college this year too. But it's a completely different mindset, and with the Volt, of course, you don't have the range anxiety, of course, but it is instant torque. It's silent, and it's really neat. After you go back and forth between driving cars, an electric car and that car over a long period of time, and you find that you sort of want that technical. At least I enjoy the technical piece of an electric car a lot, and even on the pure electrics, I've driven Leafs and Sparks. We're going to have a Spark here in another.
And what's that going to look like, or what size?
That's going to
is
be
that
an
gonna
A-segment car, so it'll be a little bit smaller than a Volt, and it'll. I'm not going to give you the range here because we're not quite done with it, but
But it'll be a pure electric car.
It'll be a pure electric, yep, and it'll be smaller, much smaller than a Leaf. So theoretically, you could do things with range and all that if it's a little smaller car. So the battery technology we own and we engineer. So I like them a lot, but the pure electrics aren't for everybody. That's the way it is. Not yet.
And
so.
how many Volts have you sold? And maybe more importantly, what's been the feedback from the people who have bought them?
Yeah, we've sold. We're probably doubling the sales this year that we did last year, and so we're doing. We're on track to do right around between 20 and 25,000 units this year, which is really good for us. We did. We did quite a bit less than that as we distributed the car to specific dealers and markets. But it now, Mark, has the highest customer satisfaction of any car in North America. So it's 94%.
Third-party research?
Yeah, it's J.D. Power.
No, I'm not.
Yeah, no, it's not me.
That came out the wrong way.
I called them up and I said, "Hey," I called each one of them. I said, "How do you like it?" No, it's J.D. Power. It's J.D. Power, and it's 94% of all the owners would recommend or buy a second car, and that's higher than the highest car that we saw ever was the Porsche 911. So this is a devoted crowd. So you're going to see. That's why this is really time-based, and we're using the car for all sorts of things to sell more Chevrolets in the dealer. But the car is very well accepted and very well liked by the people who have it, and we'll just see people learn about it and word of mouth, and it'll do all the right things, and we don't want to get out in front of ourselves on volumes and all that stuff anymore. It's crazy. So we'll just keep doing it.
Do you think it's had any kind of halo effect for the Chevrolet brand, for
It has.
GM as a whole?
It has. We do have the data on this as well, which is sort of a brand consideration data set that we do across the United States. And when we introduced the Volt, our brand consideration for Chevrolet had a healthy spike, and that's why we launched Cruise right behind it. 3 shifts out of Lordstown in Ohio, and we have sold 3 shifts of Cruise right behind that, and it was a very strategic launch with Volt, get the brand consideration back after bankruptcy, and then hit it hard with a good small car, which we probably haven't had a good small car in 20 years in Chevrolet. So it's worked out well for us. So it's done its job.
And when is this Spark car coming out?
The electric?
Yeah.
Or the regular gas version, Mark, is pretty much now. We're launching it right now, so it goes on sale, and then we follow it up early next year with a pure electric. So.
Oh, so Spark is not going to be an electric-only brand.
No.
It'll be a broader brand.
No, it'll be gasoline, and yeah, no, we would, yeah, we're not doing that. No, it'll be both, so you can do either one. Yeah, it's a fun car for kids. You know, about $13,000 on gasoline form, and we haven't announced the price on the electric yet, but it'll be nice.
So, Andy, what do the electrics work for you in the sense that an all-electric people will be able to get where they need to go because there isn't obviously a lot of infrastructure for recharging them yet? Or do you, for now, need to stick with the hybrid electrics where, like the Volt, you can switch into gasoline once you need it?
Yeah, the Volt is pretty ingenious because it's, for those of you who don't know, it's an electric car that has an onboard small internal combustion generator that charges up the battery, which allows for the great range, which an all-electric doesn't. But it's so early in the game in terms of the all-electric, and the Department of Energy has rolled out a couple of cities where they're paying for some of these charging stations. When you get a Leaf, you get an outlet in your garage if you have a garage paid for, and you know, our charging stations, it's way early to tell. People are fascinated with it. We do see them, you know, enjoying it, but we also see them swapping out of it for a conventional car a little more often, maybe because their circumstances changed and they have to drive farther. It really too early.
For a car rental customer who isn't obviously paying the upfront costs for a car like the Volt, it would seem like a natural choice.
Absolutely.
But you're charging, I assume, some premium for it as well.
Not very much. We can't. There's certain people that, you know, are fast movers. See me after.
He's making a.
I said, yeah, right.
Yeah, okay. I didn't see that.
Endorsement.
Yeah.
Don't look at me.
But we can't command a big premium with it. But you know, there's some people that really want it, and along with some other specialty cars that we have. But again, I can't remember the question, but it's early. It's early.
Yeah.
This thing is going to be a moving target. Really good stuff is going to be coming out in the next couple of years. And as they say, I think it's kind of an exciting time to be out, if you're a car buff, watching this all happen.
No, I was just going to say it would seem like an opportunity for Enterprise because it would be an appealing choice for the renter who doesn't then have to pay
try
the
it out.
gasoline.
It's a test drive.
As well as a chance to try it out.
You can pay us for some test drives. How about that?
I
That'd
know.
be great.
I know that would be really good. And then you could get a premium for the car. No, we would. That's a great. That's really the deal that we have with Enterprise is a wonderful partner to do that. We have something that's special. It's different, and people don't know about it. It's a huge way to get people into it and do it in a quality way.
Yeah, and that's the kind of stuff we do in terms of a partnership with a company. It's not just buying and selling cars.
No,
It's
no.
ways that we can both be better.
So we've been mostly talking about fuels and the benefits, obviously, of electricity or biofuels are that they're much lower carbon footprint than traditional gasolines. But one of the other environmental plays we're seeing in the industry is this whole idea of car sharing, whether it's, you know, the Zip car model where they own the vehicles or even peer-to-peer car sharing. So we have a question here. How important do each of you think car sharing will be as a part of your business in the next 5 or 10 years?
This is a tough one. We talked about it today, quite frankly, in Andy's headquarters with both of our staffs in there, and you know, there's several. I think your staff went through it really well because I asked that question of Enterprise, and there's a lot of different models inside of it. There's the urban model that is sort of the, you know, I'm gonna rent the car. And the car is cheaper than buying parking, and the parking comes with the car. So there's that sort of model that's being tried, you know, in places like New York. There's the Zip car piece of it. There's the relay rides piece of it.
Which you're an investor in, right?
Yeah, we're an investor in it, but
why are you grimacing?
well,
when you
it's
say
it's
that?
it's unknown. It's unknown, and we gotta be a company that's got to be able to take chances. But are these sure bets? There's no way that these are sure bets at all because there's a lot of insurance stuff that goes with that is very tough. You know, when you borrow a car, who's insuring the car? You know, it's not the OEM. Is it the owner? Is it the user? Is it, how is that? So I think we've got some really good things that we've talked about with enterprise that we'd like to try that I think would be really progressive, and that's probably the right way to do it, because this area of the business, frankly, General Motors doesn't know anything about this, and we're not good at it. People like Andy and Enterprise are. And so that's probably the right place to go look at that, and that's really all I know.
Andy, do you see Zipcar or Relay Rides or any of the other startups as a disruptive threat to your business?
Well, the first part of it, if I can respond to Mark a bit, is we're going to kind of be their petri dish, I think.
Yeah.
And we're going to kind of try this stuff out. We have our WeCar, which is on Washington University's campus, for an example, in downtown. We bought a company in Philadelphia, and by the way, our WeCar is basically a B2B kind of thing. We do Google's campus, you do college campuses, that kind of thing. We bought a B2C company, Philly Car Share, which is a not-for-profit car share business, because the city thought it would be a great idea to provide parking places and take cars off the road. So we bought that. It's no longer not-for-profit, I might add. And then we bought a company called Mint, which is also a B2C car rental or car sharing company, Mint, just last week or so, and small. It's in Boston and New York. So we are trying the B2C. So we're experimenting with all that, and it's very technologically intense. We're going to invest in the technology, but one must remember the Zipcar, and I give the Zipcar people plenty of credit, it's really only 10,000 cars. Now, some of you say that's a lot of cars. In the scope of things, it's not a lot of cars. Now, they're just starting to make a little money, and the business model may or may not be sustainable over the long term.
Yeah.
But to fully answer your question, it's my personal belief that standard car rental like we have and car sharing is going to kind of merge down the line with all sorts of great technology. I think you will see from us in the not too distant future, that's a couple of years. At 65, that's a long time. But anyway, that you're going to be able to reserve a car on your iPhone. Yeah. You can pick it up at a location that's going to be available at midnight. It's going to be really easy. We've already got paperless return documents and all that stuff with our brands at the airport. So it's going to become really, really convenient and easy to use, and I don't think it's going to be pure car sharing or maybe pure rental situation. Airport rental will probably be pretty much conventional. It's really interesting.
Well, the OnStar technology you have enables sort of remote opening and locking of
It
the car,
does,
right?
and
So it would fit in
that's
there.
the pipe. Yeah, that's the pipe we'll use to do what Andy was describing and try these things out, because we'll have something that probably is more 4G capable in the next gen of this, and there's a lot of other features that we'll be able to leverage that type of ease. And it's customer based instead of let's try this business model out and see if it works. It's more customer based. We know people would like to do that, and anything that makes it easier for people is probably the right way to go. And those are the things that we do want to do. So
Here's a good question. How will the current abundance of natural gas and shale oil affect biofuels and renewable fuels? In other words, will cheap natural gas create an obstacle to the development of, say, algae-based fuels or miscanthus, or we heard today about camelina as a possible biodiesel source?
nothing's forever, right? What's cheap today on that basis changes. So I think you have to be ready on lots of those fronts to be agile, and that's the only way to approach that. Because and I've done this in Australia. The minute you say that you're gonna bet a car on monofuel LPG, the price gets up, right? Because people are seeing you doing it. So and what you don't want to do is not do the car. That would be a tragic mistake. So we'll do the car, and we'll be agile enough to handle different places in there. We've got 6 million cars on the road that are flex fuel. That'll handle the 85, and that's a lot of cars and trucks. So we can handle it.
That's a really insightful question, because yes, the fracking phenomena and the low price natural gas is somewhat of a setback. We belong to an organization called the Electrification Coalition in Washington, which is trying to get electric cars, whether they be Volt or Leaf or whatever, out beyond just hobbyists. And so when this natural gas phenomena came along. They're a little distressed. But again, to Mark's point, this is a marathon, not a sprint. All of these are going to have a role.
Yep.
And you know, when Mark was at our office today, I'm delighted to see that General Motors has a game plan. They're going to have a toe in the various waters, and because not just one is going to be a winner.
Mm-mm.
But it sounds like if you're part of that electrification coalition, you would like to see infrastructure in place to make it easier for the electric segment of the market to grow faster.
Yeah, and part of the electrification coalition's goal is, and it's not-for-profit NGO basically in Washington D.C., but it also involves a lot of retired military people, whatever, who consider dependence on foreign oil from people that don't like us as a big problem. And so that's the big umbrella over this organization, and we can fit in that electrification part.
Mark, this one is for you. GM was a leader in hydrogen fuel cell technology and development, but you don't hear much about this technology recently. Do hydrogen fuel cells play into your plans?
They do, and we still lead in it, so we still have the best fuel stack and arguably the best tank. The tank is very important in this because it's high pressure and it's got to survive crashes and all that. So the tanks that we put in the cars, the fuel delivery, all that stuff is incredibly important. You know, we can go out and talk about this and make everybody feel really good and all that stuff, but at the end of the day, again, we have got to place our bets, and so we're doing that, and we're not going to tip our hands, so that's why you're not hearing about it.
He's a smart man. It is a very cool car to drive.
It is. It's very nice.
It's really interesting.
They'll come, but it's not on the near horizon. It, you know, as always, it'll come. Yeah, it'll come.
Well, this is a question for both of you because you both operate outside of the U.S. Can you contrast the U.S. market with what's happening elsewhere in the world when it comes to sustainability of automobile transportation? Are we ahead of the curve, behind the curve? Mark, you spent how long in Asia?
Yeah, I spent over 2 years in Asia and Australia, and we're behind. Okay, we are, and it feels bad. And we just haven't had an energy policy that we can rally around here, you know, for a long time, I think, and artificially low gasoline prices and all that stuff. So,
why do you say artificially low?
well, I think the rest of the world uses that to create infrastructure and build sustainability to some extent, and we don't, and to a large extent. That's my opinion. There's a lot of people that would disagree with me and all that stuff, but you know, there's a lot of politic activity. We re-elect every few years, and I think there's a lot of people that I'm not sure we've really dealt with that. You know, by contrast, in Asia Pacific and Australia, the government and there is energy policies on that. You know, and what they're going to do and what they're going to import and what they're not going to import. And what they're going to build infrastructure-wise to you know, enable the supply. And in places like that, they've got CNG that we developed and went heavy at, in taxi cabs in Thailand, for instance. We did the same thing on LPG in Australia. Each one of those countries, you know, there is a policy around some of that stuff that you see it happening and being accelerated. You don't want to get into a heavily subsidized deal. You know, there's a fine line there, but the policy on what we are and aren't going to do, I think, is really needed. So, and Andy, you may disagree with me on that, but
No.
Would you like to see us moving faster towards what one could think of as a more sustainable mix of transportation fuels?
Yeah, I think everybody would like some clarity
Yeah.
on it, for sure. I think we also would like to have customers really buying in and having something they really they enjoy owning and operating, and you know, it's coming together. Just one quick story about, you know, are we behind sustainability? When we opened our German operation a little over 15 years ago, I guess, as is typical enterprise fashion, we had one of our enterprise people who happened to speak German coming out of the U.S., went there and got a car and was driving around looking for places to put our offices. and sort of using the car like his office. You know, he's searching for properties for branches. And at the end of the day, he goes to the petrol station, fills up a German gas station, empties the trash out in his car and throws it away, pays for the gas and drives to the hotel. And about 20 minutes later, there's a knock on the door of the hotel, and it's the police. And they arrest him because he didn't sort his trash 4 ways.
Yeah.
And that is a true story.
Oh, that's true, yeah.
And they gave him a ticket.
Yeah.
And that was a long time ago. I mean,
No.
over there in Germany,
Oh, yeah.
it's a big deal.
Oh, my
if you're
gosh.
gonna if you're gonna bid on contracts with corporations, you have to have a very detailed
Yeah.
explanation and description of what you are doing as a business in terms of sustainability.
Mm-hmm.
You know, things like water,
Water,
things
yeah.
like energy, things like community involvement. It's a big deal over there, and it's occurring now with large companies here in the U.S. You have to have that aspect of your business really nailed.
And are you comfortable with that?
Yeah, I think if we do it right, it's a competitive advantage.
Yeah, I do too.
I do.
That actually is a good lead into a question here for each of you. Let me start with you on this, Andy. What steps, if any, do you take to promote sustainable practices on the part of your suppliers?
Yeah, I'm not as tuned in exactly to that, but I think we're in the early stages of asking for those explanations because some of our larger customers, Lee, am I answering this correct, are asking us, what are you doing with your supply chain? So I think we're in the beginning early stages of that, and looking beyond just what we're doing in bringing that supply chain into effect. But it's part of the game. It's going to be there. So face it. Yeah, and it's hopefully going to make this world a lot better place for everybody.
You know, I probably should, Mark, do you want to comment on your supply chain?
Not really, other than we have some pretty rigorous things that we go after with our supply chain from start to finish, and it's worldwide, and we do it particularly in the tier ones that come into our plants where we know what's going to come in there. We want to know exactly how they've done it and what the side effect is and the place they're doing it, all that. So it's pretty detailed stuff with our supply base.
I mean, I probably shouldn't have to ask this question, but kind of given some of the political dialogue at the moment, I will. Do both of you believe that climate change is a serious problem, that it's caused by human activity, and that we should try to do something about it?
I'll answer that. It's not a question of what I believe. It's a question of what our customers believe and what the world believes. And therefore, we think of our customers first, and that's going to cause us to do what we have to do to create a sustainable business model, and part of that is making sure that our customers are proud to do business with us. So it's about them.
Me?
Yes.
I personally do believe it, as well as what Andy said. I personally do believe it.
So in that sense, you think our government is lagging in this because there essentially is no climate policy at the moment?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not smart enough to know how much it's the government's job to do that either. You know, I don't know. I think it's the responsibility of everybody who lives here too, quite frankly, and the businesses we run. So the government, I'm not sure that the government is the answer to this. I think we are. You know, we all live here, right? I mean, so.
There may not be an energy policy, but I think if you asked our friends in the coal industry, which several of headquarters are here, the Department of the Environment, I think, is basically regulating in such a way, or what is it, Department of Energy?
EPA.
EPA, thank you. The EPA is regulating and in effect making a policy. And so that's kind of a backdoor way of having an energy policy, if you will.
That's true. It's just been lacking,
Yeah,
I think.
clarity would help.
So let's just back up for the last couple of questions here. This is another Washington question, if you'll forgive me, but if there were one or two things that the President or the Congress or the President and the Congress together could do to improve the business climate and or do something for sustainability, what would be at the top of your wish list at the moment?
This is a rather evasive answer, but I think they all got to start talking to each other there in Washington, and they'll figure out what they have to do.
So the
those
polarization.
specifics are not viable at this point. You know, it's just they basically got to talk. We had a senator from a Midwestern state in this morning, and it's just tough. It's very tough.
I think.
Mark, do you have a wish list?
I do. I do. I think that America has underestimated the importance of making things in this country as an export basis. And I think one of the reasons why it's so tough coming out of this global financial crisis is because we were largely a service economy that maybe in some ways overspent and extended ourselves beyond where we may have maybe should have from an affordability standpoint because of the credit access. And so if I had a wish, I wish that the concentration on manufacturing and jobs right now to bring this on an accelerated basis back, I think would be extremely helpful as long as everybody's talking to each other, which I think is an incredibly important thing. But I think that's one of my very top ones is, you know, we are in real danger, even if we see growth back in this economy, if we don't have a basis that is export making things based, we will be at risk once again very, very shortly. So, thank you.
I'm confused now. Okay, thank you. One more question, or shall we wrap it up? Okay, thank you. So you were just talking about coming out of the crisis. I'd love to just close with getting each of your thoughts on where the economy is going. You're both businesses that are very tied to cycles. Are you optimistic about the next 6 to 12 months? Pessimistic, somewhere in between? Andy, what do you think?
Well, when you have a jobs report that just came out that's not very encouraging, that is disappointing. My opinion really doesn't matter in the sense that it's very clear, particularly after the 08-09 period, we lost money for 3 months in a row, and that didn't happen for the last 53 years. I think it happened maybe to Jack in his first year, or 54 years ago. But I think we are very typical of a larger business at this point. We look at the external environment as being very fragile, whether you're talking about the European financial problems in Southern Europe, but it could affect Northern Europe. The blowback could affect us to some degree here. I'm pretty optimistic it's not going to be too terribly bad. But we have a lot of dry powder. We have delevered quite a bit. We reduced costs. We had a headcount adjustment in 08, early 09, which had never happened in the history of our company, which was extremely difficult to have to do for our family and our business, but it was the right thing to do. So our costs are really in line right now, and things are fragile. Business is pretty good right now, and we're adding people because the fleet is going up, but it's just a lot of caution, and nobody's going to make any big bets right now, I believe, until they have some more certainty.
I totally agree. You look at the recovery, and again, you see manufacturing and the auto industry, of which we're both participating in, adding the most jobs and leading the way out of the economy again. And that comes back to my manufacturing comments. We cannot be and have a sustainable economy without that. So we got to get back to that. But our company is set up to run about 11 million on a break-even basis. The industry's running at about 14 and a half. So I feel good about that. But and we're agile enough to operationally go up or down around that, which is a great place to be. But I think our two companies are probably symbolic of the caution that's in it because of the joblessness that's again based on not being able to make and export things and recover fast. So, you know, we're going to see this plug along a little bit here, and we'll have a little bit of ups and downs, but it will grow, but it's got to grow in the right way where people are confident that they got a job, that they can put food on the table based on, you know, a job that's going to be here 2 years from now. And then we'll see some of our companies take a little bit more risk on expanding and growing the company, but we're not there yet.
Okay, well, please, first of all, join me in thanking Andy and Mark.
Thank you. Oh, yeah, thank you. Absolutely. Great question.
And now I do want to turn this over to Dr. Danforth, who leads the Danforth Center here.
I would just like to express my appreciation to our wonderful organizer and question answer, Mark Gunther, and to our great panelists. To our panelists, Mark Royce and Andy Taylor. It's been a wonderful session. And let me just ask everyone here a question. Do you feel better after listening to this session? You know, I said earlier today, we started this center with the idea of doing something wonderful for the world. And it's just very exciting to me to hear two leaders of our great American companies talking about sustainability and how they're going to contribute to continuing our planet in a healthy way so that our great-grandchildren can have the same kind of opportunities we've had. And so I thank you. I'm going to go home and have sweet dreams tonight. Thank you.